The winter sky above King's Landing brooded with dense pewter clouds, yet the weight pressing upon the Red Keep felt heavier than any coming storm. Lord Eddard Stark stood upon a high balcony that overlooked Aegon's ancient city, cold wind tugging at the gray in his hair and ruffling the white-dyed feathers upon the royal banners below. He had crossed half a realm at Robert's summons and now lingered, half-ghost, among marble corridors and smells of spiced Dornish wine. Below, the day's court had ended, yet the echo of clashing desires still rang across stone like distant steel. He did not belong in this place of crimson walls and whispered secrets, not after 15 quiet years in Winterfell. Yet duty, ever his truest burden, had called him south again. Robert had been vague in his letters, promising urgent matters that could brook no delay. Urgent matters, Eddard had learned, often meant grim tidings clothed in merry laughter. He shivered, drawing his wolf-cloaked shoulders tighter. The city reeked of smoke, tallow, and restlessness, a thing breathing in surges while crows circled the ramparts in wide, patient gyres. He remembered each tower. He remembered each stone where Rhaegar's ghost might linger. Old memories were thin ice glazed over dark water, ready to crack beneath the weight of new lies. He would tread lightly. The hinges behind him groaned. Footfalls, booted and bold, came across the frost-dusted floor. He did not need to turn to know the man by the smell of leather and strong wine. "You always find the tallest perch," boomed King Robert's voice, thick with gravel and something like affection. "Are you up here counting rooftops again, Ned?" "7 hells, we have carpenters for that." Eddard managed a small, fleeting smile. "I count more than rooftops. I measure shadows, your grace." Robert's laugh rippled like distant thunder. "And what do your shadows tell you? That piece is sword's edge thin." The king stepped beside him, broad as a blacksmith, cloak trimmed with golden stags flapping behind massive shoulders. His cheeks held the flush of wine, yet behind the mirth Eddard glimpsed something steely. Tension coiled around bone, exposed root beneath bark. Robert's blue eyes scanned the rooftops. "There will be no peace once my secret is loosed." The king exhaled, fogging the chilled air. "I have little time to play at riddles, old friend. Come below. The small council waits, and I need your voice." Eddard's brows knit. Must council hear it first? Robert's jaw worked. A battle raged behind his gaze, armies of doubt and pride. "It must hear, but only after you have known." They descended spiraling steps into hallways hung with faded Targaryen tapestries. Dragons devouring sunbursts, red waste behind scorched fields. Servants scattered before them. Each torch they passed hissed and spit as if fearful. In the royal solar, Chamberlain Ser Boros Blunt lingered outside, pale as curdled milk beneath his white cloak. He bowed stiffly. "Your Grace." Robert waved him off, pushing into the chamber. A stout cedar table carved with hunting scenes dominated the center. Around it clustered Grand Maester Pycelle, beard trailing silk. Lord Renly, green and gold cloak folded over one arm. Varys, perfumed in lavender, and Ser Barristan Selmy in polished white enamel plate. They hushed when Robert entered. He motioned Eddard to the empty seat at his right. Iron hinges squealed shut behind them, sealing in the council, and whatever storm Robert carried. The king remained standing, one fist on the table, his shadow swallowing half the map etched upon its surface. "You all know why I summoned Lord Stark. What you do not know is why my summons had to be answered now, or what matter outweighs every other squabble in this damned kingdom." Renly's dark brows lifted. "If the Greyjoys stir again, we have fleets." Robert snorted. "Balon sulks in his towers. This is no Ironborn raid." He reached to his belt, drew a small folded parchment sealed with blue wax, and slid it across to Eddard. "Read." Eddard broke the seal. He recognized the neat, slender hand that had written the first words even before he comprehended them. His sister's lilting grace, preserved over time like a pressed winter rose. He read once, twice, and the hall seemed to lurch beneath him. The parchment told a tale of tower and blood, of how Lyanna had not been stolen but spirited away, how her love for Rhaegar had flowered in secret vows upon Dragonstone. and how, by blade-soaked moonlight in a tower of broken walls, she had died bringing forth their son. A son entrusted to Ned's arms. A son Robert Baratheon now knew as Jon Snow. His breath came ragged. Lyanna's voice, a ghost of a ghost, spilled from those inked lines. Tears blurred the candle flame. He felt the cold of that tower of joy again, stench of death and roses. Robert watched him. "You see my quandary." "How?" Eddard's voice cracked, a stranger's. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." Robert lifted a trembling hand to his beard. "I had the letter months ago, delivered by Howland Reed himself with those 2 Kingsguard swords you broke beneath that tower. Your secret was safe, Ned, but the realm's was not. Not if truth can mend wounds I thought unhealable." Pycelle cleared his throat, beard quivering. "Your Grace, legends of bastardy rarely foster unity." Robert's eyes flashed. "Bastardy? The boy is lawful. Lyanna writes of secret vows. Vows may be proven. The Citadel keeps records of every blessing sworn at Dragonstone Chapel. I have dispatched ravens, silent as winter stars. It shall be verified." He faced them. "When it is, the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen is no bastard of mine, nor whelp of dragons. He is the blood of North and South, and he will inherit the 7 kingdoms." A hush like snow filled the chamber. Varys steepled fingers together, lids half closed. Renly swallowed, face unreadable. Selmy's gaze drifted to the door as though expecting foes there already. Eddard found his voice. "Jon knows nothing. He will learn." Robert's fists clenched. "And better by my hand than Lannister steel." There it was. Eddard needed no spider's whispers to understand. Robert meant to cut Joffrey from succession. Rumors had long curled around the boy like ivy. Golden as a lion, temper bright and cruel. None of the king's thunder in him. If Robert believed the whispers of Cersei and Jaime, if he named Jon heir, storms would gather on every horizon. Eddard held the parchment tight. "Have you told the queen?" "I will, with you beside me." Robert's mouth twisted. "She will protest, threaten, connive. Yet I am king." Selmy shifted. "Your Grace, with respect." Removing the prince questions the queen's honor. "Noble houses tied by marriage will not sit idle." "Let them march," Robert growled. "I've broken rebels before." Renly's voice was soft yet sharp as velvet steel. "You are healthy now, brother, but no longer the man who broke Rhaegar's breastplate. The kingdom bleeds gold to arm Tyrell spears and Dornish daggers. War will burn crops and coffers alike." Robert slammed a fist. "War is already on us if my line is false." Varys' whisper slithered. "There may be paths gentler than open steel. A fosterage, perhaps. Elevate the boy to Storm's End. Name him your ward, and—"
"No," Robert barked.
"Wardship is not enough. I loved Lyanna. Her son will sit the Iron Throne. That is justice." Eddard rose. "Your Grace, the realm's peace hangs by threads. Let us reason. Jon is but 17. Crown him too soon and wolves, lions, dragons reborn will tear him limb from limb." Robert's thunderous mood faltered. "Then guide him. You are his uncle in truth. Stand his hand, truly this time, and teach him." Eddard shut his eyes. He heard winter's wind again, distant and forlorn across battlements of home. To stay was to drown in poison, yet to refuse was to leave Jon adrift among serpents. "Very well," he whispered. "For Jon's sake." Robert clasped his shoulder. "For Lyanna's, for all of us." He faced the council. "Summon the lords paramount. We shall convene a great council at midsummer. Proof of Jon's birth will speak for itself." Pycelle sighed. "A council will appease some, incite others." "So be it," Robert said. "We forge peace with fire, tempered, not wild." Eddard felt each heartbeat like a drum of ice and ash. They were crossing thin ice indeed, and beneath weighted depths darker than any night beyond the wall. Across the city, Queen Cersei paced her private solar, skirts sweeping marble like waves setting on shore. Candles flickered in alcoves framed by lion-sigilled drapes. In her hand, A letter from her cousin in Lannisport trembled as though each line were a viper ready to strike. Her golden hair gleamed molten in firelight, but her eyes, green and wide, held storm-tossed seas. She bit her lower lip, tasting copper. Spies whispered of Robert's closed councils, of Lord Stark's arrival, of ravens flying in secret to Old Town and Dragonstone. Secrets piled upon secrets, and none favored her. Joffrey's laughter, high and cruel, drifted from the adjacent chamber where he and Tommen fenced with wooden swords. Each scrape set her teeth on edge. She loved her son. He was her son, her lion prince, and no one would steal his crown. When Jaime entered, soft on Cat's feet, she whirled. "He plots against us," she hissed. "I smell treason every time the king breathes." Jaime leaned against a tall pillar carved like a maiden. "Which treason, dear sister? Robert has more than one to spare." "He conspires to disinherit Joff," she spat. "I do not yet know how, but I feel him slipping away, our hold slipping. The stag would sooner see the red keep in ashes if he cannot father an heir worthy of him." A lazy smile tugged at Jaime's mouth, yet his eyes hardened. "Let him plot. No paper crown will keep me from protecting what is ours." "But we need more than blades," she whispered, taking his hand. "We need truths, secrets, leverage. Find out what they whisper about in their council. And quickly." Jaime kissed her fingers. "As you command." Atop the Tower of the Hand, Eddard stood at moonset, gazing upon the sleeping city. Each light below winked like an ember of a vast hearth. Behind him, parchment scraps, maps, and sealed letters blanketed the desk. Ravens waited in iron cages. He opened a new page, quill trembling. He wrote to Jon, still at Winterfell, telling him nothing of crowns but urging him to guard his honor and his heart. Another letter to Catelyn, explaining only that duty bound him south again. A third to Maester Luwin, with instructions to seal Winterfell tight and prepare for the turning of all winds. Every scratch of quill sounded like a dirge. He thought of Bran's laughter, Arya's mischief, Rickon's wide eyes. He thought of Jon, brooding under the weirwood, unaware the roots of his life had been torn and replanted in crimson ground. The candles guttered low. He dipped the quill once more, and paused. A soft creak from the corridor. He spun, hand drifting to the dagger at his belt. Little finger slid into view, smile thin as a razor. "Writing love letters, Lord Stark? I do hope one is for me." Eddard's face cooled to stone. "Speak plainly, Lord Baelish." Littlefinger waved a hand. "Plainly? Very well. Half the Red Keep already wagers why the king's ravens flap so furiously. I merely wish to place my coin on the winning side. There is no wager. There is the realm's welfare." "Ah," Baelish sighed, stepping close enough for lamplight to gild his mocking eyes. "And welfare is such a delicate blossom, best trimmed carefully before someone else prunes it." Eddard's patience thinned. "Spare me riddles." Littlefinger clasped his hands. "Then facts. The Lannisters count each nail hammered into the king's coffers. They will know soon enough. When they do, claws will be unsheathed. I could help you blunt them." "Why?" A shrug. "Some men move pieces across the board. Others become the pieces. I prefer the former." His smile widened. "And because I owe you a debt for Cat's tears." Eddard's heart clenched. "Keep Cat's name from your tongue." "Of course." Littlefinger bowed. "I meant only to say allies will be scarce. Find them where you can, before storms swallow us all." He slipped out as silent as a cat in snowfall. Eddard exhaled. The night felt tighter, colder. He sealed his letters and summoned a guard to send them by swiftest falcon. In Winterfell's Godswood, Jon Snow knelt beside the heart tree, blade of Longclaw resting across his knees. Snowflakes drifted, catching in his dark hair. The weirwood's red eyes watched him, its face carved by ancient hands glistening with frozen tears. He had been sparring with Robb at dawn, preparing for the journey to the Wall with Benjen Stark. Yet unease prickled along his skin of late, as though each step awaits a precipice. Ghost, huge and silent, paced near the pool, white for silver beneath pale sun. Jon gazed at his reflection in icy water. A bastard's face, half-shadow. What did he seek at the wall? Purpose? Escape? A place where birth mattered less than courage? Perhaps. The cry of a raven shattered the stillness. Above, a black shape swooped, landing on a branch overhead, parchment tied to its leg, wax seal blue as twilight. Jon rose, snow crunching. He plucked the message and frowned at the unfamiliar color. Winterfell ravens bore gray or white seals. He broke it. Lines in a bold but elegant script, his Uncle Ned's. Words of caution, of love, of change to come. No details, but a summons. Jon was to depart south at once, escorted by a detachment of Stark guards, straight to King's Landing. He read thrice, his heart hammered. South? Away from the wall? No explanation, only urgency. Ghost padded to his side and whined, ears twitching as if sensing distant thunder. Jon stroked his head. What game is this, Uncle? Above, the raven croaked, took wing, and vanished into gathering clouds. He hurried across the bailey toward the great keep, boots splashing through slush. Robb spotted him from the armory steps and jogged to meet him, cheeks pink with cold. The wall is not far enough for you? Robb teased, but concern flickered in his gray eyes. Jon handed him the letter. Robb read quickly, brows climbing. Father calls you south? Winterfell will feel emptier than a broken mead cask. Jon tried to laugh, but worry choked the sound. I do not understand. Perhaps the king needs more good swords. Yet he doubted it. Robb clapped his shoulder. Whatever it is, you'll face it with Stark blood. Write me of your adventures among the gilded fools. Jon forced a grin, but dread pooled in his gut like meltwater finding dark cracks. Weeks later, banners unfurled over King's Landing bearing direwolf, stag, trout, and rose. The great council Robert had demanded assembled in the dragon pit, vast ruin reborn as arena for politics rather than dragons. Stone arches groaned beneath fresh timber stands. Lords and ladies flocked like carrion birds, scents of lavender, horse, and suspicion thick as incense. Jon rode through the city's gates behind Eddard's sworn men, black cloak sweeping road dust. His eyes drank sights vast and strange. Murders of crows upon thin spires, gold-cloaked guards extorting coin, vendors hawking honeyed locusts. None looked at him twice, another Northman astride a smoky gelding. Yet behind every face he saw questions he could not ask. The night before the council, Eddard met him in a small candlelit chamber overlooking Blackwater Bay. They embraced, strangers born of blood and secrets. Ned's gray eyes shone with a sorrow Jon had never seen. Whatever happens, Ned said, pressing a leather-bound volume into Jon's palms. Remember your honor. The world may twist your shape, but the steel within must stay true. Jon opened the book. On its first page, a sigil half direwolf, half crowned stag, inked in black and gold. He blinked. What name is this? You will know soon. Ned's voice shook. When you do, hold fast. Jon sensed the gulf widening underfoot. Am I in danger? We all may be, Ned whispered, but we face it together. Cersei arrived to the dragon pit wearing cloth of gold shimmering like morning sun. Joffrey preceded her, crown of antlers atop golden curls, expression proud and petulant. Jaime and the Kingsguard formed a white wall behind. Whispers followed them as ripples follow a ship. Cersei smiled as one who holds hidden blades. Robert sat upon a temporary high seat of dark oak, stag sigil carved above his head. Beside him, Eddard wore muted gray. Jon stood in shadow behind. When the last horn sounded, heralds called for hush. Robert rose. His booming voice rolled through shattered vaults. A smith's hammer falling on hot iron. We gather to safeguard the realm, he began, to mend false lines and set true ones. Murmurs rose. He silenced them with a glare. Many of you know tales of war and blood. You followed me into battle. You spilled the blood of dragons and broke the throne of tyrants. Yet I tell you, a lie was born in that war, a lie that festers still. Cersei stiffened. Joffrey's lips parted. Robert lifted a scroll bearing the royal seal. Here lies the final testimony of Lyanna Stark, written in her hand, witnessed by 7. He motioned to Pycelle, who stepped forward, voice quavering as he read. The dragon pit held its breath as Lyanna's words flowed, words of love, of marriage to Rhaegar Targaryen, of a child born of that union. Shouts erupted. Stark men cried oath of honor. Tyrells murmured. Martells stared like carved stone. Jaime's hand fell to his hilt. Cersei's face drained white, then flared crimson. Robert raised his hand. By the oaths of Sept and Godswood, this child is lawful son of Prince Rhaegar and Lady Lyanna, nephew to Lord Stark, grandson to Steffon Baratheon through me, by bond of marriage. Jon Targaryen. He turned, beckoning.
Come fort, lad.
Jon stepped into torchlight. Gasps rippled. Cersei's nails dug crescent moons into her palm. Joffrey sputtered, eyes wild. Robert's voice softened. In honor of Lyanna's love and Rhaegar's legacy, I, Robert of House Baratheon, first of my name, King of the Undulls and the First Men, do declare Jon Targaryen my lawful heir, styled Prince of Dragonstone, with all rights and dignities thereof. Silence taut as a drawn bowstring. Then chaos. Lords sprang to their feet. Some cheered, others cursed. Gold cloaks surged. Stark men formed shield wall around Jon. Lannister guards pressed forward. The dragon pit echoed with roars of fury and exultation. A brewing storm of blades and banners. Cersei's voice cut clear. Treachery. She pointed at Robert. You would spit on our marriage bed. Shame our son before all? Robert wheeled. I shame only myself for letting falsehood live this long. Joffrey shouted, shrill. I am the king's firstborn. I am the heir. Robert's eyes hardened. You are my son in name alone. Gasped. Cersei stepped before Joffrey, hand upon his chest. You damn us with lies. Robert's laugh was bitter. Your lies damned us, woman. The realm sees them now. Ned rose, voice cutting through clamor. Lords, hear the king. Vengeance will not heal the land. Justice must be measured. But wariness thrummed. Tywin Lannister was absent, yet his shadow loomed. Ravens would already fly to Casterly Rock. Armies would march. Selmy angled his helm toward Robert. Your Grace, we must transport the Prince Heir to secure chambers. Jon remains at my side, Robert replied. Cersei's gaze flicked to Jaime. Unspoken signals passed. The Kingslayer's hand hovered near sword hilt. Bah! Rhys observed like a silent spider. Renly whispered with Loras Tyrell, green eyes gleaming with possibility. Jon stood beneath the weight of 10,000 stairs. He felt his life rend itself cleanly, like cloth cut by Valyrian steel. Snow to Targaryen, bastard to prince. North to south, he saw a road of fire and sorrow stretching far beyond. Ghost paced outside the pit, hackles bristling though walls of stone lay between them. Somewhere, deep within the city, bells tolled. Not for death, not yet, but for change so great that death would surely follow. Night swelled like a bruise over King's Landing. Fires dotted hills beyond. Camps of house guards roused to vigilance. The Red Keep became a fortress within a fortress, corridors lined with doubled sentries, each paranoid, each eye reflecting torch flame like fear. In the royal apartments, Robert paced, wine untouched. Ned watched from a chair, exhausted. Jon sat nearby, gaze distant. The fools, Robert raged softly. They rave of birthright but choke on truth. He turned to Jon. Do not fear them. Your claim is forged of iron and honor. Jon swallowed. His voice, when it came, trembled. If I am truly the prince, does that make me a Targaryen? It makes you you. Robert knelt before him, giant humbled, palms upon Jon's shoulders. A good man raised by good men. If more Targaryens had been like you, perhaps no war would have been needed. Jon looked away, eyes glassy. The weight pressed. Ned rose. He needs rest and answers. Secrets cannot be armor forever. Robert nodded. Tomorrow, Enough for one night. They retired to separate chambers. But sleep would not come for Eddard Stark. Candles melted, dripping tears of wax. He unrolled maps of the King's Road, tracing routes where armies might converge. Above the city, the moon hid behind black clouds. A single star winked, red as fresh blood. At Casterly Rock, ravens delivered the ruinous news before dawn. Lord Tywin read, calm as cut marble. He rose, commanding his household guard to ready 70 wagons of gold and a legion of lions. No fury marred his icy calm. His vengeance was a glacier, slow, unstoppable, grinding mountains to dust. Summon every bannerman, he said. We march at sunrise. Across the sea in Sunspear, Prince Doran Martell fingered a wine cup, thoughtful. A Targaryen returned offered hope of debts paid. Elaya's children, slain by Lannister blades. Yet the blood of Stark and Baratheon mingled with that line. Doran's subtle mind spun webs. In Highgarden, Mace Tyrell considered marriages and banners, seeing painted stags and roses entwined. Alliances could grow in newly plowed fields. And far in the icy north, beyond the wall, Mance Rayder glanced south and muttered of crowns forged in Dragonfire. Yet winter cared not for crowns. 2 nights later, Jaime Lannister strode into the Tower of the Hand under guise of delivering a message. Guards lay unconscious, lips blue from subtle venom spilled on meat pies a turncloak baker had provided. Jaime's white cloak fluttered as he stepped through silent corridors. Within, Eddard pored over scrolls. Steel whispered from scabbard just as the door clicked. He turned, sword in hand. Kingslayer, Ned greeted, voice low. Does honor guide your steps this night? Jaime smirked.
Honor?
No, love guides me. It is a poor map, but an ardent one.
Blade met blade.
Sparks flew. They fought amid shelves of ledgers, steel ringing ledger-bound truths. Jaime's style was liquid grace, Ned's solid north. Neither granted quarter. Step aside, Jaime hissed between clashes. I seek the boy. I cannot. Ned parried, foot sliding on parchment litter. He is under my protection. Then you will die. Jaime spun, fainting low then high.
Ned blocked, countered.
Yet he knew single combat seldom remained single in King's Landing. From hall corners, Lannister men closed, daggers drawn. Sudden howl, a direwolf's cry. Ghost hurled into the chamber. White blur of fury, fangs bared. One lion screamed, throat torn. Ned pressed advantage. Jaime cursed, retreating. Steel parted flesh. Ned felt warmth at his side but pressed on. Jaime reversed grip, slid away, blood at corner of mouth. Torchlight churned shadows. At last, Jaime disengaged, eyes blazing. This is folly. My father will raise the city if harm comes to us. Remember Ares. Ned steadied his breath. I remember children butchered in beds. I will not see such again.
Footsteps thundered, stark Quarz shagging.
Jaime sheathed steel, backing through door. This is not done, he called, then vanished, cape ghosting around corner, leaving blood and echo. Eddard staggered, a shallow cut along ribs. Ghost licked his hand, crimson muzzle shining. He leaned upon a shelf, feeling the weight of every impossible decision pressing down. War lines drawn quicker than quills. Beyond windows, dawn's first light-colored sky the hue of steel just quenched. Pale, dangerous, and new. As weeks crawled, Jon trained under Ser Barristan, learning politics under Varys' careful tales, and listened long to Ned at night, hearing of Lyanna and the song of ice and fire intertwined. Yet each dawn, banners of new foes rose beyond the city. Lannister lions, Florent foxes, even Arryn falcons. Lord Tywin's army camped on the fields of the Blackwater Rush, a golden sea beneath crimson pennants. Inside, whispers of treachery spiraled. A Tyrell courier vanished. A Dornish envoy died choking on honey. The city tensed like a drawn longbow. Robert sought compromise. He offered Cersei leniency, Joffrey Storm's end, Myrcella fair isle dowry. She spat in his face. The line had hardened. On the first day of the new moon, Tywin's banners advanced, drums beating. Robert armed for war, yet gout seized his leg and he limped, raging. The throne room became a wasp hive. Eddard counseled for diplomacy. Hold court, show strength, but parley. The realm bleeds while lions roar. Robert scowled yet listened. They met upon the banks of the Rush. Robert upon his warhorse, armor dull with age. Tywin immaculate, red and gold enameled plate. Between them flapped a white banner, yet words failed. Tywin demanded Joffrey's crown restored. Robert demanded Lannister men disarm. Neither bent. The parley ended with swords half-drawn. Only rain ended hostilities that night. Jon watched campfires flicker across the river, each flame a heartbeat of the realm. He felt trapped inside a storm he did not summon. Eddard joined him atop the ramparts. "I thought war ended 15 years ago," Ned murmured. "But perhaps it only slept." Jon shook his head. "All for birth? For names? For pride?" Ned said. "Pride splits kingdoms like frost splits stone." Jon looked east, where dawn hinted. "Then we must be water, not stone. Bend, flow, find cracks."
Ned smiled faintly.
Spoken like a king already, the decisive spark came not from armies but from ink. Proof from the Citadel arrived. Records of a secret marriage on Dragonstone between Prince Rhaegar and Lady Lyanna, witnessed by Septon and Maester. Legal binding. The scroll bore Citadel seal and signatures. Copies spread like wildfire. Lords who had wavered shifted allegiance. Others dug heels deeper. Tywin burned his copy, face unreadable, and ordered his trebuchets assembled. King's Landing braced for siege. Within city walls, famine loomed. Cersei's agents poisoned grain stores. Food riots erupted. Jon toured the streets in plain cloak, giving breadcrumb loaves from personal stores. Small folk whispered of the Wolfstag prince who shared his meals. His legend grew, yet not all eyes adored him. In a dark cellar by the Flea Bottom, an alchemist prepared green fire, the substance Ares had once hoarded. A hooded man paid in gold lions and left instructions. Burn the usurper's heir. On the night of first snowfall, as Tywin's engines hurled stones, the hooded man slipped among cheering small folk gathered for Jon's address at the Dragon Gate. Jon stood upon a dais, ghost at heel. He spoke of unity, a future forged by all. Torches lit the winter air. Hope flickered. The assassin, cloaked in rags, pushed forward. Within his satchel, a flask of wildfire trembled. Ned, on battlements above, saw the push of bodies, the glint of glass. He shouted, but wind stole the warning. Ghost snarled, sensing threat. Jon turned. The assassin hurled the flask. Time slowed. Glass spun, green light seething. Ghost leapt, jaws closing on the neck of the attacker, dragging him down. The flask shattered not upon Jon but ground at the man's feet. Green fire blossomed, roaring dragon bright. Screams tore the night. Jon flung himself aside, heat singeing cloak. Guards extinguished his blazing sleeve. Ghost howled, fur alight, yet rolled in snow, quenching flames. When the inferno died, only charred stones and the assassin's melted corpse remained. Jon knelt by Ghost, stroking burnt fur. Tears streaked soot on his cheeks. He looked up, meeting thousands of frightened eyes. He rose, voice hoarse yet thunderous. Fear will not rule us. Fire will not break us. Together north, south, every man, woman, child. We will quench hatred with courage. Cheers rang, raw and fierce. High above, Ned breathed again. Inside the Red Keep, Cersei heard of the failed assassination. She smashed a mirror, shards tinkling like snowfall. Jaime watched, jaw tight. "He lives," she spat. "They cheer him as if he were Rhaegar reborn." Jaime placed hands on her shoulders. "We still have armies. Armies bleed." She turned, eyes glass. "What is a crown worth if all is ash?" Jaime hesitated, then kissed her brow. "Then let us cut the palace from under them." No, her voice was a whisper of silk over steel. "We must cut the boy's heart, not his throne." Hearts sway lords more than crowns. That same night, Varys visited Ned in the Tower of the Hand, gliding from shadow like a silent wraith. "My lord," he murmured. The rattling of keys grows loud. Spiders hear that the Queen's dwarf brother has ridden from Casterly Rock with a gift. A blade of Valyrian steel, small enough for a child's ribs. Ned's blood chilled. Tyrion means Jon harm? Some gifts are delivered regardless of sender's wishes. But whispers say the blade will find its mark within these walls. Ned fingered his ribs where Jaime's cut still throbbed. "Thank you, Lord Varys. Your loyalty." "Loyalty?" Varys sighed. "I serve the realm, Lord Stark, as do you. Let us hope we serve it well." He melted away, leaving chill. Thus winter set claws upon King's Landing. Snow dusted crimson roofs. Tywin's lines withdrew to Lannisport to re-equip. Baratheon banners rode north to gather support. For a breath of weeks, siege eased, though war remained. Jon spent long nights reading tomes of history, learning tongues of old Valyria. He walked ramparts with Arya, newly arrived from Winterfell, flinging snowballs at startled knights. He visited wounded in Maester's tents, their loyalty sealed in blood. He dreamed of white wolves running across walls of ice, and dragons crying under bleeding stars. Robert's health waned, swollen joints, coughing fits. Yet each morning he would rise, curse, and game at Syvas with Renly, who counseled that youth must soon shoulder burden. Robert always lost yet laughed. One evening, Robert beckoned Jon to his study filled with hunting trophies. Fireplaces roared. The king poured 2 cups of mulled wine. "I never fathered a true-born son," he said, gaze distant. "Not with Cersei. I thought seed spilled in her, but gods made mockery." He chuckled bitterly. "Now, in you, I have a son of heart if not seed." He raised cup, to fathers and sons, and to hope. Jon clinked his cup, warmth curling through him like dawn. But hope drew envy. Cersei met with Tyrell envoys, promising marriage alliances if they helped place Joffrey on throne. She bartered gold and gardens. Loras Tyrell, Knight of Flowers, slick with charm, entertained whispers of crowning Renly instead, sowing discord. Pycelle, old and wry, carried tales to Cersei, letting slip Eddard's plan to send Jon north to rally northern lords. Cersei smiled with ice in her veins. She visited the royal armory, where Gendry, bastard of Robert, forged steel. She studied his stature, muscled back, black hair. A thought stirred, a weapon grown from Robert's seed but loyal to gold. She summoned Gendry one night, offered coin to serve her. He refused. She smiled serene and ordered him arrested for theft. He fled into alleys, pursued. Arya stumbled upon the chase near the Dragon Gate and drew needle to defend him. Gold cloaks advanced. Arya slashed one hamstring, grabbed Gendry's hand, and vanished into tunnels. Rumors spread of wolf and bull children running beneath the city, symbols of rebellion sprouting in catacombs. Jon, learning of Arya's flight, donned plain leather and slipped into streets with ghosts to find her. In Flea Bottom, he moved among beggars' fires and empty eyes. He found walls painted with crude sigils. A white wolf, antlered stag, crowned dragon his own. Hope lived in filthy corners. At last, in the depths of the dragon sewer, he discovered Arya and Gendry beside an old collapsed route once used by smugglers. Arya's eyes shone with mischief. Gendry eyed Ghost warily. Jon hugged Arya, berated her, then thanked her. They returned under cloak of night to the Red Keep. Robert laughed when he heard. Baratheon blood runs wild. He pardoned Gendry, hired him as smith. Cersei smiled sweetly the next council meeting, but her nails drummed table like claws. On the first day of the year 301 AC, ravens from the wall brought dire news. White walkers sighted beyond the Milkwater, wildlings fleeing south by thousands. The Night's Watch begged reinforcements. Robert convened council. While lords squabbled over lions and wolves, winter's true shadow advanced. Jon listened, thoughtful. He spoke. "If we squander swords upon gold and pride, we leave the realm's throat bare to darkness. I would ride north, rally bannermen, and hold the wall. Cersei scoffed. A king must sit his throne, not chase snow ghosts. Jon met her eyes. A king must guard his people, wherever threat arises. Robert grinned. Spoken like a warrior, but you will not ride alone. I will lead, gasped. Pycelle near fainted. Ned leaned forward. Your Grace, you are not fit for such travel. Robert waved him off. Fit enough. A taste of real war might trim this belly. He patted gut. Plans took shape. Renly as regent, Ned as chief advisor. Jon to ride with Robert, Stark banners joining at Moat Cailin. Selmy to command rear. Cersei's smile died. She retreated to her solar, shattered goblets, and vowed the wall would be Robert's grave. Snow fell thicker as columns mustered. Jon donned ringmail of blackened steel trimmed with white wolf. He bid Arya keep Needle hidden and obey Sansa for once. He embraced Sansa, promising songs of northern lights. He shook Bran's hand firmly, ruffled Rickon's hair. He knelt to Catelyn. She placed a token of her own, a dire wolf carved of weirwood, in his palm. She whispered, "Keep my son safe." Whether she meant Robert or Jon, he did not know. Eddard clasped Jon's forearm. "Remember, honor but tempered by mercy, and trust Ghost." Jon nodded. "I will." Robert mounted his great black destrier, warhammer slung. Trumpets blared. Gates opened, and the king's host rode in swirling snow, heading north. Behind them, banners of Lannister stirred restlessly. Cersei watched from a balcony, golden hair whipped by wind, Jaime by her side. She whispered into his ear. He nodded, descending stairs toward the stables, golden armor glinting. Far across realm, Tywin Smith's forged chain links of red gold, each shaped like roaring lion jaws. War would come again, and soon. Yet for a moment, as Jon rode between Robert and Ned across the frozen fields of the King's Road, he felt the weight of past fall away. Ahead lay a world waiting to be saved or doomed by choices yet unmade. Snowflakes kissed his helm, glittering like silent stars. And somewhere, beyond walls of men and memory, ice cracked and an ancient shadow walked, drawn by new blood carrying both wolf and dragon fire. The royal of the king's banners rolled northward like a bright-tipped flood, a serpent of color winding along the King's Road. At its head thundered Robert Baratheon atop his destrier, hammer across his saddle and laughter in his throat, though the wind stabbed through the chinks of his old warplate and made him wince when no man watched. To his right rode Eddard Stark, layered in boiled leather and wolf fur, gray eyes ever surveying the tree lines as though ghosts might spring from every shadow. Between them kept pace Jon, no longer snow in the whispers of the host, nor quite Targaryen in their hearts, but something new, a sigil not yet painted onto any shield. The white direwolf trotted silent at his flank, paws muffled in half-melted rime, crimson eyes forever sweeping. The first days measured themselves in frosted breath and the rhythmic beat of hooves on half-frozen earth. Winter crept south faster than any raven, its first stealthy claws bringing crystals that sparkled on leather reins by dawn and left every campfire guttering for more wood to devour. The small folk along the road crawled from thatched cottages like wary mice, drawn by the colors. A crowned stag flanked by direwolf, trout, and the crimson heartburst of the faith. Some knelt, more merely stared, half awed, half uncertain. It had been many years since a king rode this way who was not intent on battle. Yet rumors rode ahead. The Lannister host gathering east, Tyrell levies restless, Dorne sharpening spears in memory of dead Elia. Farmers spoke the gossip when they offered crusts of brown bread, eyes darting from Robert's belly to the young prince they named Dragonwolf. One night the host set its pavilions upon the snow-dust plain south of the Tumblestone. Riverrun's towers glimmered distant, orange jewels above river mist. Lord Hoster lay dying, so the talk said, and Edmure Tully awaited the king in his stead. Robert would visit come dawn, break bread, share wine from the last harvest before riding onward. But for that night they made camp in the lee of a low hill ringed in leafless willow. Jon walked the perimeter with Ser Barristan, whose white armor flashed moonlight. The old knight's breath plumed like steam. "Do not mistake this quiet for safety, your highness." Jon winced at the honorific. "Ser Baratheon, you served 3 kings before you served my uncle. Does the title grow lighter with time?" The knight's smile was rueful. "It grows heavier, my prince. One day you will feel it." Wind sighed between tents, tugging at standards. Jon's hand rested on Longclaw's pommel, felt the worn leather Ned had wrapped years before. "I feel it already, though I do not yet know its shape." Baratheon stopped beside a frost-silvered boulder and faced him squarely. "Then you are half the battle there. A man blind to his burdens may crush those beneath him. Keep your eyes open. Remember the folk who scrape mud from boots so we may ride in comfort." A distant horn brayed. Jon and Baratheon turned together, spying torches bobbing up the rear line. Riders approached at speed, their horses lathered. Within moments they thundered past sentries, cloaks snapping. One bore the rump of the boar standard of Crakehall. The other flew a quartered field of silver bells and dark blue waves, House Fry. Robert emerged from his pavilion as though he'd been waiting, hammer already in gauntlet. Ned followed, lacing a belt scabbard. The Crakehall rider swung down, breath rag. "D. Your Grace, we bring dire news from the Mummers' Ford." Lannister outriders probed the border. Small folk slain, croplands burned. Robert's face reddened. "Tywin dare light torches upon my road?" The Fryman bowed next. "Lord Walder bids you shelter at the Twins. He says the Tullis cannot guarantee safety. His crossings stand strong." Eddard's lips tightened. "The Twins are strong walls, but deeper snares." Robert barked a laugh. "I'd sooner bed a viper. No, Tully blood's my wife's kin in happier times. We ride for Riverrun, walls or no." That night sentries doubled, campfires banked low. Moon rode high over the white plain, and across it padded shapes blacker than night. Scouts of the direwolf banner. Jon took his watch, eyes straining at every rustle. Hours passed, then hushed footfalls. Ghost's head snapped up, ears flat. From between 2 wagons glided Arya, cheeks flushed, hair tangled. Jon gaped. "What in the 7 hells?" She pressed a finger to lips, dragged him behind a gut cart reeking of salted pork. "Sansa and everyone think I ride in the litter. I slipped out after dusk. Gendry smuggled me under tarps." Her grin was fierce. "If father and the king ride to war, why must I mind my stitches?" Jon's heart hammered. "Because war cares little for whose blade you prick your finger on." "Arya, it isn't safe." She shrugged. "Not safe there either. Cersei had half the keep hunting me. Here at least I know who my foes are." She pulled needle from her sleeve, glint momentary in starlight. "And I missed you." Jon sighed, anger ebbing. "All right, tomorrow I'll face father's wrath beside you." "Good." Her eyes softened. "The pack stays together." Jon drew her close, touched by something old as the first winter. The unspoken bond of blood and bone. Over her head he saw Ghost watching, eyes twin embers. The direwolf seemed to nod approval. They slipped back toward the king's fires where Ned, already alerted, stood waiting. There were no shouted words, only a long silent gaze between father and daughter, the kind of look that carried a ledger of grievances and forgiveness too deep for tongue. At last Ned rested a hand upon Arya's head and led her inside. Jon lingered, mind a-whirl. Morning came beneath a bruised sky. The host crossed the tumblestone under thawing sunlight, Riverrun ahead. Edmure Tully greeted them within the red sandstone gates, face drawn tight, blue eyes rimmed in sleepless red. "Father cannot rise, but his blessing is yours," he said. Minstrels played, but the castle's revel was hollow. A black pennant flapped above the maester's keep, neither for battle nor celebration but the hush that precedes a death. Robert visited Lord Hoster's sickbed alone save for Ned. Jon prayed in the sept beside a knight wearing the Eel of Derry, listening to the rasping breath of old men in dark cloaks who came to offer candles. He heard hushes of conversation. Talk of Lannister gold in every corner, of Sellswords hired in Pento's swelling Tywin's ranks. He knelt before the warrior's statue, felt stone cold beneath his palm, and vowed he would meet his fate honor-shod. Night's Watch ravens had ridden the winds to him even there. Sir Jeremy Ricker's letter lay folded in his belt. Skirmish at the Hoarfrost Hills, wights that would not sleep until their bones were pulped to paste, 10 black brothers dead before sunrise. Each sentence tightened Jon's gut. He dreamed that night of pale kings carved from ice, their crowns thorned with frost, their eyes a cold blue deeper than sorrow. They raised swords of crystal that hummed like winter storms. Beside him ghosts snarled, back arched, but the sound was muffled by falling snow as thick as feathers. He woke before dawn, breath white in the dark. Outside the guest tower a river fog coiled thick, swallowing torch glow. From below came a distant argument, Edmure haranguing his master-at-arms to raise more men. Jon pulled on boots and stepped onto the battlement walk. Across the courtyard, Robert strode alone, shoulders bowed. Jon followed and caught him by the stables where the king fed a carrot to his warhorse. Robert studied him, eyes tired. "Dreams keep you, too?" Jon nodded. "Night's Watch letters speak of dead men walking." Robert grunted. "I trust Benjen's word above half my counsel. A new war behind every tree. But the one in the north, too many lords laugh it off." He patted the destrier's neck. "We'll show them. Terrors fade when faced." Jon dared voice a thought. "If we fought the living as one realm, Lannister, Tyrell, all, then we could face the dead together." The king looked out toward the river where dawn just silvered the water. "Aye, yet men prefer their squabbles. Always have. Keep that in heart, lad. Forging unity is harder than shattering bones." They rode out 2 days later, leaving Riverrun flags drooping in their wake. Behind them followed 200 Tully Lancers under Ser Desmond Grell, but Robert's host still numbered scarcely 5,000 blades, not enough to cow Tywin's 70 warships of mail. Yet scouts reported the Lion host returned to Lannisport for provisioning, giving respite. Some among the king's men muttered of blessing, others smelled trap. Beyond the Green Fork the road narrowed between Barrow Hills. Mist hung heavy. That evening as outriders sought camp, a flight of black-fletched shafts hissed from the gloom. 2 riders toppled. A third shouted alarm. The vanguard spurred forward. Horns sounded. Jon, in rear guard with Ser Barristan and Arya's litter, heard the clamor and wheeled Ghost around. "Bandits," men cried. Yet these were no starving outlaws but armored sellswords in crimson cloaks without sigil. They struck fast, aiming to sever command. Robert bellowed, warhammer swinging, but gout flared and he sagged, leg buckling. Barristan and Jon pushed forward, Ghost leaping.
"Steel ran."
A sellsword lunged at Jon, spear glinting. Longclaw knocked it aside, and Ghost clamped jaws on the assassin's thigh, dragging him screaming into fog. Amid the uproar, Arya slipped from her litter and slashed a foe behind the knee. Blood sprayed. Ned roared her name, but she ducked beneath a buckler and darted away. Jon lost sight of her as more riders broke through. The fighting seemed endless. The hiss of arrow flights, the wet smack of iron on flesh, the thunder of hooves finding skulls. Then, as sudden as the ambush came, the attackers fled, leaving dead and dying strewn across frosted grass. When tally was made, 20 loyal men bled out. One of Robert's bannermen lay headless. Arya sported a shallow cut across cheek but stood unbowed. On the corpse of the commander they found a medallion, a small lion's head worked in gold. Robert ground it beneath heel. "Tywin's dogs fetch well." He winced, rubbing his swollen knee. "But they nip like pups." That night maesters stitched wounds lit by guttering torches. Jon sat near Ghost, who licked the seeping slice across his shoulder. Nearby, Ned cleaned blood poison from Longclaw's fuller, face remote. At last he spoke low. "We cannot march blind. Scouts must ride wide each dawn." Jon cleaned his blade. "I will ride among them." Ned eyed him. "You are heir apparent to the realm. Your life cannot be risked on every hillside." Jon met his gaze. "If my life is worth more than theirs, how long before men decide I am not worth following? Let me share their peril." Ned's expression changed to something like reluctant pride. He laid a hand on Jon's arm. "Very well, but choose your companions wisely." So it was that Jon rode out at sunrise, flanked by Jory Castle and 6 keen-eyed rangers, Arya sulking behind. Snow flirted across the landscape, swirling in eddies around standing stones older than Undulls. They found no foe, only silent tracks that vanished toward the hills. Yet each pass revealed burned farmsteads, livestock butchered and left to rot. Fear, Jon realized, was a weapon heavier than mail. In the evenings, the king's camp pulsed with tension. Robert's laughter grew brittle, his leg dark with swelling despite Maester's compresses. Still, he insisted on nightly councils. Around crackling fires, maps unfolded, tokens arrayed. Lion for Tywin, Rose for Mace, Sunspear for Doran, Falcon for the Vale. Jon watched Renly slide pieces, his smile too smooth. He watched Stannis' carved ship remain distant on map's edge, that stern brother silent on Dragonstone but no doubt forging some ironclad claim. One cold dusk a raven arrived from Eastwatch by the sea. Its message, penned in scrawled haste, told of a ranger's patrol returning headless. Only their horses found the gate, eyes white, hides rimed with hoarfrost despite no snow that side of the world. Maester Aemon added a plea: "Send fire, send steel, send faith." The parchment smelled of salt and dread. Robert slammed goblet against table. "Tywin threatens south, death comes north. We stand between hammers." Eddard traced coastlines. "We need allies, not swords. Mace Tyrell courts advantage. We might bind him to us." Renly's eyes gleamed. The Tyrells love pageantry. A queen cut from Highgarden silk would sweeten any bargain. Robert scowled. "I've queens enough." But his cough answered for him. Blood-speckled linen. Jon watched, alarm tightening his chest. Maester Coleman insisted it was naught but throat strain. Pycelle had sent stronger syrup weeks past. Yet each night Robert's face grew grayer. One starless night a storm blew from the west, flattening tents. Jon lay awake listening to canvas snap when footsteps quick and light brushed outside. Ghost lifted his head, ears perked. Jon slipped into boots, sword in hand, and followed the dog's silent lope. Wind shrieked through guy ropes, shapes moved by the livestock picket. He saw Arya crouched behind a cart, peering at a solitary figure laboring over the king's destrier. In each flash of cloud-shrouded moon he recognized the lank build, one of the Crakehall men, remembered by his boar crest. The man worked powder along the horse's water bucket. Jon strode forward. "Hold!" Longclaw glinted. The spy froze. Arya appeared behind, needle pricking his back. They dragged him before Ned. Under threat of dire wolf fangs, the man confessed. Cersei's coin to poison the king's mount, hoping a fall might finish what blades had not. Robert, once roused, heard the tale with glassy eyes. "Rot their bones," he muttered, and flogged the traitor until dawn before stringing him from a tree. Yet his breath came ragged after, and Ned noted the tinge of yellow to his eyes. They reached Moat Cailin on the last day of that dying year. The great towers leaned like drunken giants above mists, yet even ruined they barred the narrow neck. Stark banners streamed high where ages-old stones met sky. Roderick Castle rode out to greet them, gray whiskers rimed with frost, and behind him thousands of Northmen. Manderleys in sea-green cloaks, Umbers roaring, Glover archers, a host unfurling in silent discipline. When Jon rode between their ranks, he felt more eyes upon him than ever before. Some curious, some cold. Rumor of his Targaryen birth had flown north on invisible wings. In one field he spied the black banner of Karstark and the men beside it whispering, fingers tracing sign of the old gods. That night fires blazed within the ragged curtain wall, and the smell of roasted elk rolled over trampled snow. Jon broke bread with Lord Wyman Manderley, whose jowls quivered with each hearty laugh, yet whose blue gaze studied him sharp as a diver's hook. "Your Grace," the Lord said eventually, "you wear wolf's fur, speak with Stark's tongue, yet songs will call you dragon. What of northern loyalty when Targaryen crowns weigh heavy with Southron promises?" Jon chose words like stepping stones across a river. "I was raised in Winterfell, knelt at the heart tree, bled beneath the same snows your sons bled. Whatever name I bear, winter's wind cuts us the same. The wall must stand, our hearths must burn. If the crown drifts south, so will warmth. I would keep it burning here. Manderley nodded slowly and passed him a second slice of turnip cake. Later the Lord's men bellowed bawdy shanties of wailing ports, but when Jon slipped away to breathe crisp night air, he heard different music. Men around lesser fires speaking words of ancient kings of winter, debating whether a dragonair could wield an ice-forged crown. He walked among them, listened, answered, shared a skin of sweet mulled beer crafted by Newcastle's brewers from distant White Harbor. Doubt did not vanish, but at dawn when the horn sounded to march, more cheers greeted him than the night before. Northward they pushed through the neck, the road no more than a winding rampart of logs half-sunken in bog. Reed clans appeared like phantoms, leading them through safe trails. Mira Reed laughed with Arya at each camp, trading stories of spear and frog gig, while her brother Jojen watched Jon in silent contemplation, emerald eyes seeming to see beyond flesh. One evening he drew Jon aside by a pool where luminous ghost moss glowed beneath dark lilies. "You stand at the crossroads," Jojen said quietly. "In some dreams the path veers red as dragonfire and freezes blue as still water. In others it bends like willow, neither burning nor breaking. The choice lies not only in what you do, but what you allow to be done." Jon shivered though the air was still. "I do not know I have that power." "Power is the shadow of choice," Jojen whispered and slipped away. A fortnight later they came upon Winterfell. Smoke from its chimneys stood black against of sky. Bells tolled, a clash of bronze echoing through the godswood where ravens startled from pines. Every roof wore white caps. Bran from his tower window saw the banners approach and sent riders to throw wide the gates. Catelyn embraced Ned so fiercely her rings scored leather. Tears flashed before she mastered herself. Rickon clung to Jon's leg until Shaggy Dog caught Ghost's scent, and they spiraled in circles, sniffing, tails high. Yet the joy was tempered. On a bier beneath the great heart tree lay Maester Luwin's apprentice, a lad slain at the stables by White Claws 2 nights past, and Benjen Stark had not yet returned from his ranging, though the raven spoke of his survival. That evening, as snow hissed in the brazier pans, Ned led Robert to the crypts beneath the keep. Jon followed, torch casting flickering shadows across ancient kings frozen in stone. Before Lyanna's statue Robert stopped, eyes glistening like frost. "I broke a realm for love of her," he murmured, "and now her child must mend it." Jon laid his palm on cold marble fingers. Inside he felt storm and calm together. His mother's face he did not know, yet her voice thrummed in his blood like distant harp. He knelt. "I will try." Ned placed the torch in a bracket and knelt beside him. Robert sank heavily to one knee, breath wheezing. 3 people, a trio bound by grief and duty, bowed before the memory of a girl who once promised crowns of blue winter roses. In that silent crypt, some unseen current seemed to pass from the dead to the living, an oath perhaps, or warning. Snow deepened. Winterfell bustled with the burden of hosting a king's army. Grain stores dwindled. Catelyn organized counting. Manderley barges rode up the White Knife bearing salted cod and casks of White Harbor stout. Still rumors of the Lion host moving again filtered north. Lord Tywin had taken Harrenhal and secured Blackwater's crossings. Across the narrow sea, spies claimed sell-sail fleets sworn to the Golden Company made for the Stepstones, their captains hungry to carve new thrones from chaos. Stannis Baratheon sent ravens at last, letters meticulous and cold. He pledged fleet and garrison to the crown on condition the line of succession remain pure by law. Some read warning between the letters. Robert laughed, said Stannis would follow once victory was near. Ned murmured that men of Dragonstone seldom followed. They made their own storms. Jon spent hours in the yard training with Northmen. Arya darted through their legs, sparring with Syrio Farrell, Braavosi swordmaster Ned had hired at Winterfell months earlier. The yard rang with steel on steel. Breath steamed in clouds. Ghost, recovered from wounds, lounged watchful. One afternoon Ser Jorah brought news. A rider from the wall arrived, horse foamed to bone. It was Benjen, gaunt, eyes haunted. He stood before Robert in the great hall, torchlight catching icicles in his beard. "Your Grace, the dead march. The fist is lost, the shadow tower near overrun. We need men, any men." Robert's face flushed. He half rose then reeled, catching himself on the throne Ned had once carved from oak to seat him in Winterfell's hall. Blood speckled his lips. Silence crashed over the watchers. Maester Coleman and Catelyn helped Robert to chambers. Rumors swept like wildfire. The king's gout turned fever, his liver failing, poison from the wound he had taken in the ambush. Jon stood outside the door listening to Maester's mutter of tinctures. Leeching, glimmers of hope thin as spider silk. That night Ned beckoned Jon to the solar. The room smelled of cedar smoke and parchment. Ned sat beside a coffer bearing wax-sealed letters. "If Robert dies," he said hoarsely, "your claim will be a torch in dry brush. Cersei will loose every bolt. Tywin's armies stand ready. We must think fast." Jon stared at the hearth. "I did not ask for crowns. No more than I did." Ned reached and touched Jon's shoulder. "But they find us. Benjen's news changes everything. If the walkers breach the wall, Southron wars will matter little." Jon drew a slow breath. "Then let us break the wheel. Call banners, march all north. Face death first, throne later." Ned's eyes shone. "I will follow that path, but convince Tyrells, Lannisters, Dornish? That requires miracle." A knock. Arya burst in, cheeks flushed. Ghost and Shaggy Dog are restless. Something prowls the outer yard. Jon rose. Ned followed. They crossed Bailey to where stable lanterns showed shadows stretching like claws. Ghost stood rigid, teeth bared toward the Godswood gate. Jon approached and saw eyes shining from within. Pale blue, wide, inhuman. The thing shuffled out clad in torn black cloak. Frost rimed its beard. It lifted a hand stiff as jerky. Fingers ended in claws of black ice. Spoke not but hissed, vapors curling. Behind Jon men cried for weapons. Ned drew steel. The white lunged. Longclaw whistled, severing arm. The limb crawled across snow like some great spider, talons scratching. Arya shrieked but darted to thrust needle through the squirming limb, pinning it. Men hacked. The body bled no blood, only brittle shards of frost. Even dismembered, it writhed. Benjen strode forward with torch. Ghost leaped away snarling. The flame touched the flesh, and at once the parts writhed faster, shrieking until blue fire consumed them and silence fell. Smoke coiled skyward, acrid and foul.
Benjen met Jon's horrified stare.
"From the fist," he whispered. "One of ours. They chase him south, but he chased you faster." A chill deeper than winter gripped Jon's heart. No walls were high enough to bar such horrors if they already prowled Winterfell's courtyards. Across the yard Ned bent to pick icy splinters that steamed away to water in torchlight. He closed his fist around them as though to crush fear itself. That same hour ravens flew, one to Tywin at Harrenhal, one to Storm's End where Renly held court, one even to Dragonstone, though no man knew if Stannis would read words written by a Stark. Each told a single truth. The long night walked again, and every blade was needed north. Morning dawned iron gray. Robert roused from fever, gaunt but lucid. Jon knelt beside his bed. Our Grace." Robert's smile was faint. "Pox on Grace. Call me uncle." His fingers, once meaty, now trembled bone-thin in Jon's grasp. "I will ride no farther," he rasped. "But you must." Jon swallowed tears. "I cannot leave you. You must." Robert coughed. "Take the crown, know the promise of it, and ride to the wall. Gather every sword. The living stand together or die alone." He reached for the warhammer lying idle beside pillow. "I wielded this for vengeance once. You wield hope." Jon pressed his brow to Robert's hand. "I will not fail you." Robert touched Jon's cheek. "Make peace with lions. Tywin loves his name more than any son. Offer him glory, beyond walls, beyond pride, and he'll grasp it." Before midday Robert's fever returned. Maesters emptied leeches, brewed poppy, but he slipped in and out of slumber. Ned convened lords in Winterfell's hall. Words stark as banners. A realm divided dies. Lord Umber slammed fist on table. I'll ride. Skagosi too. Manderley vowed ships to Eastwatch. Ryswell promised horses. Even Karstark grudging. Yet southern banners remained uncertain. Jon silently penned letters in Robert's name. To Mace Tyrell, he offered joint command of a grand host to step beyond the wall and carve new marches fertile for second sons. To Doran Martell he promised justice. A seat at council deciding fates of war criminals old and new. To Lisa Arryn he pledged her son lordship of the Eyrie unchallenged if she sent Vale Knights north. Each missive sealed with stag and wolf entwined. Arya barged in as he folded the last. Sansa says you've forgotten the gold cloaks. Cersei wrote them first. She'll march them here. Jon managed a grim smile. Then we must reach them sooner. He found Benjen and asked for the fastest rider. Take this to the City Watch commander. I served under him at court. He'll listen. He pressed coin and letter inscribed with orders, in the name of King Robert. To escort Queen Cersei to Dragonstone until hostilities cease. Whether gold cloaks still bowed to stag or lion remained to be seen. 3 nights later ravens returned. Tywin's answer sealed in wax bearing roaring lion. Jon broke it amid circle of lords. It read, to Prince Jon of houses Targaryen and Stark, winter devours pride as surely as fire. If you march beyond the wall, lion banners will stand beside the wolf, on these terms. The safety of my grandchildren, the honor of my name unsullied, and the body of my son Jaime returned should he fall in your wars. Meet me at the Trident in 30 days. Bring oaths, not armies. Tywin of House Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock, Shield of Lannisport, Hand who might have been. Murmurs filled the hall. Some called trap, others saw miracle.
Ned met Jon's case.
We must go. Jon nodded. My crown will be forged in ice first, not iron. Preparations consumed Winterfell. Blacksmiths hammered dragonglass Benjen's rangers had found at the fist, forging arrowheads that shone like midnight water. Children gathered ravens, taught them new flights. Maesters mixed wildfire with lamp oil, careful to label casks. And in the godswood, under heart trees' watchful eyes, Jon knelt in snow that came to his thighs, Arya at one side, Bran at the other. The air hummed. Wind rustled red leaves like crackling parchment. Bran's pale face looked older than his summers. I saw you in my dream, he whispered. You wore a crown of frost and fire. When you walked, spring grew behind you, but the sky bled. Jon reached, brushed snow from Bran's brow. Dreams are seeds, he murmured. We decide what sprouts. He rose, feeling the weight of 10,000 lives settle like mantle on his shoulders. Ghost paced ahead as though already leading him along hidden wolf paths. Somewhere north an ancient enemy stirred, reknitting sinew of ice. Somewhere south, lions weighed pride and fear. Somewhere east across black water, exiled captains sharpened pikes for hire. And in a tower room where feverish whispers flickered between this life and the stranger's hall, Robert Baratheon dreamed of summer days chasing Lyanna through Winterfell's quiet grass. His breaths grew shallower with each passing candle mark, yet even he could sense history turning beyond stone walls, turning toward a dawn neither wholly of ice nor fire but of both, bound in the heart of a young man who had once been called Snow, and now carried the hope of 7 kingdoms upon a blade forged in the chill of northern night. Snow whispered over the battlements through candle-dark hours, soft enough that only the wolves and the restless heard it. In Winterfell's solar, torches sputtered low, and Jon stood bent above a map of the neck-tracing rivers with a gloved fingertip. Each tributary, each marshy braid, was a vein that could pour men or monsters south in spring thaw. His breath feathered white while flames chewed slow at resin-rich pine. Outside the shutters, Ghost bristled at drifting scents. Somewhere far across the yard, a smith's hammer chimed, steady, determined, echoing through stone like a heartbeat refusing surrender. It soothed Jon's mind until the door groaned and Ned entered, cloaked in wolf fur, face shadowed by unease. The king's fever climbs, Ned murmured. Coleman tries lamb's breath and milk of the poppy, but Robert grows weaker. Jon's chest tightened. Will he last the moon's turn? Ned offered no false comfort. We must act as if time has betrayed us. Jon straightened, eyes on a charcoal blot marking the trident. Tywin expects parley. Robert's signature means more in his eyes than mine. Perhaps, Ned said, voice hushed. But Lannister gold worships power, not ink. If Robert cannot ride, your presence must suffice. And mine, and half the banner's northern oaths can muster. Jon rolled the map, tying it with leather. We leave at dawn. Dawn came thick with iron sky and wind smelling of distant seas. Horns lowed from watchtowers. Ravens fled their roosts in ragged spirals. In the courtyard, men saddled horses glazed with rime. Armor creaked, and banners fought the gale. Dire wolf and stag entwined upon new field of pale silver and black. At the steps to the great keep, Catelyn braced her husband's arm as he descended, authority armored over fretful heart. Arya approached, rolling her shoulders in supple boiled leather. I ride too, she declared. Ned's reply was a father's reflexive refusal, but Jon caught his gaze. Ghost can smell malice leagues away, Jon said. Needle's point may find gaps grown men miss. Ned's jaw worked. Memories of ambushes and living corpses weighed heavy. At last he laid a hand on Arya's shoulder. You ride in the inner column beside Mira Reed. Obey her and live. Arya's grin could have lit a torch. Bran watched from Hodder's basket on the ramparts, raising a hand. Sansa, tasked to remain and steward Winterfell, smiled through tears. Rickon shouted farewells into the wind until Shaggy Dog howled. As gates heaved open, Benjen Stark led the van, black cloak snapping. Knights in mail of gleaming harpoon scale flanked him. Manderly captains carrying tridents of silvered ash, the watchers of White Harbor. Behind rode Jon beneath a hood of midnight wool, long claw at hip, ghost padding like moonlight. Ned followed with Umbers, Glovers, and Reed outriders singing low swamp songs. 6,000 marched, steel and frost and brittle resolve, leaving Winterfell's warm fires to guard a dying king. The first league south of the last river brought sleet that stung exposed skin like ground glass. Columns slowed where bogs swallowed ox wagons. Ropes hissed through pulley wheels as men hauled casks of dragonglass arrowheads. At the edge of the bar Roland's Arya rode knee to knee with Mira, trading jokes about bog devils. Jojen Reed drifted near Jon, silent save for the murmur of reeds tied in his belt. One evening as camp coals popped beneath cabbage broth clouds, Jojen spoke. Dreamed again, the field of green water streaked red. Gold masks floated downstream like lilies. A hand rose from the ford, clutching ice that burned. Jon refrained from scoffing. He had seen too much wonder to mock. The trident flows green, he said. Let us ensure lilies remain lilies. Jojen's inscrutable smile faded. To change dreams cuts destiny's thread. Yet some knots beg severance. Before Jon could press, a horn cry rose, one note, urgent. Men seized polearms. Ghost bounded ahead. Jon followed to the picket perimeter where 2 sentries held a prisoner. A ragged youth, cheeks hollow, bearing a necklace of tin coins and an old Myrish crossbow across his back. Hired scout, one guard spat. Caught marking our numbers. Jon studied the boy's trembling lips, remembered his own nights in Winterfell's crypts where cold felt like judgment. Name, Simeon. The youth stammered, accent Riverlands. Tywin promised silver for head counts. Thought, hunger. Jon's next words surprised even him. Take him to the kitchens, feed him. To Simeon he said, tomorrow, ride with us as squire or ride away with full belly. Gold for treachery starves men of honor. Decide whether your stomach or your soul commands. That night Simeon wept over a wooden bowl of rabbit stew. And come dawn he knelt before Benjen Stark asking leave to bear messages along the column. Rumors spread. The dragon wolf offers mercy where lions offer coin. In war, reputations skitter faster than mice. 7 days brought them to the tumbling hills east of the Green Fork. There, under flurries that turned tracks to chalk, Tywin's outriders emerged. An honor guard of crimson armor and white hack-sable cloaks cantered to within arrow range, halted, and raised banners of parley. From their ranks rode Ser Kevin Lannister, golden beard neatly plaited, green eyes hard. Jon spurred forward beside Ned. Ghost loped, but Jon halted him with a whistle. Kevin dipped a curt nod. "My lord hand, Prince Targaryen? Stark?" "The river runs muddled." Jon bridled but bowed. "The river runs free of gold." Kevin ignored Barb. "Lord Tywin invites you to his pavilion. As swords rest, let words weigh heavy."
Jon glänzt dort Ned.
They exchanged the silent calculus of risk, then accepted. They rode across frost-dusted loam to a sprawling canvas city stitched crimson and gold. Inside the largest tent, Tywin waited upon a dais of carved oak, flanked by archways draped in Lannister red. Beside him lounged Tyrion, eyes bright behind wine cup, and across a low table sat a severe maiden of middle years in green. Lady Sibel Glover, taken hostage at Harrenhal months before. Her presence shouted unspoken leverage. Tywin rose, tall and leonine, face cut from granite. "You stand beneath Lion's hospitality," he intoned. "Speak the cause of your summons." Jon swallowed heat of anger. "The dead march. We ask your swords for the wall." Tywin's brow inched. "The wall is 200 leagues north. My castles burn while you chase phantoms." Ned's voice cut cold. "Phantoms bled one of my men at Winterfell's gates. This war dwarfs thrones." Tyrion sipped. "Thrones enthrall the living, Lord Stark. Dead need no crowns." Jon stepped forward. Soft torchlight limned the curve of Longclaw's pommel. Bare head glinted. Ser Kevin's riders saw our host, ragged Northmen, not enough to storm Harrenhal. Yet we marched, leaving home unguarded. Why? Because if the walkers break the wall, your gold mines will freeze over before my father's hearths. Unite with us. Tywin's gaze weighed him like coins on scale. Silence thickened. Flames popped. Outside wind moaned. At last Tywin gestured to Lady Sibel. "Release the lady to her kin when the pact is sealed. I will ride 2,000 knights north and provision 10,000 spearmen. In return, the crown recognizes the debts owed Lannister coffers and cedes trial for Ser Jaime to Lannister courts after the war." Ned's knuckles whitened. "And the queen?" Tywin's nostrils flared. "Cersei remains regent while Robert lives. Remove her, and this pact splinters." Jon thought of wildfire flask and poison water buckets. Regent may reign, yet her claws cannot draw royal blood. She remains in Dragonstone custody during the campaign. Tywin's jaw flexed. "Unacceptable." Tyrion leaned up on elbows. "Father, a daughter's temper may scorch more than enemy swords. Dragonstone sits behind stout walls. Better she kindle her fury at sea than in your camps." Tywin's eyes flicked. Hostage of his own blood. Precedent for things to come. He gave a single crisp nod. "Very well. The Queen Regent remains in Dragonstone, under guard of both crown and rock." They clasped forearms. Ink would follow, but steel hearts already turned. Outside, snow fell heavier, draping tents in muffling shrouds. Jon's breath hung silver as he stepped into night air. Kevin escorted them to the neutral ground between armies. "Your mercy to the boy Simeon travels fast," he said. "Whispers claim Dragonwolf offers pardon to all kneelers." Jon mounted. "Dead men keep no grudges." Kevin's nod carried quiet respect. "May your mercy shield you." Jon rode into gloom. Ned fell beside him. Tywin's help could tip scales, but he will set terms after snow melts. "We'll face that thaw when it comes," Jon said, scanning starlit drifts. He thought of Robert in fever's grip, and of Lannister ambitions, and of the black tide beyond the wall. All seemed impossibly vast until Ghost pressed against his leg. A wordless promise that claws and fangs needed no treaties to rend nightmares. 3 nights later, the combined hosts raised pavilions along the Trident's east bank. Campfires spread like constellations across white fields. Steam of cooking stews climbed into aurora-speckled sky. Lannister smiths joined northern farriers repairing cracked shoeing nails. Umbers slapped backs of Westerland's crossbowmen over shared flagons of onion ale. War-weary men found uneasy fellowship beneath fear of darker foes. Jon convened councils in a canvas hall warmed by braziers. Maps of the wall sprawled across trestles. Benjen spoke first, voice gravel. Shadow Tower lost 200. Eastwatch garrison halved. Wildling camps flee south of the Frostfangs, herded by things they will not name. A Knight of the Rock asked, "How do we kill creatures already dead?" Benjen produced a dragonglass dagger shimmering oily black. This and fire. Armorers passed blades of the stone like shards of night sky. Tywin's quartermasters scribbled tallies. Arya perched atop a crate, swinging legs, needle across knees. When men muttered of witches and walkers, she flicked blade, catching torch glint. "Fear cuts deeper," she whispered to Simeon, now her self-appointed page. He repeated it like mantra. While lords debated, Tyrion strolled to Jon's side. "You forge alliances quickly, nephew." Jon eyed him warily. "Some metals bond under heat." Tyrion chuckled. "And shatter when quenched too soon. Mind your cooling." Jon softened. "Why aid us?" The dwarf's smile turned small. "Because monsters beyond the wall do not discriminate who they devour. And because I appreciate a good wager. I fancy living long enough to collect." The night before departure, Maester Coleman's raven winged into camp. Robert Baratheon had succumbed to fever 2 days past. A hush rippled through tents. Men studied starlight as though hoping to glimpse the king's spirit striding to halls of heroes. Jon felt the message like a hammer blow. He strode alone to the trident's edge where moonlight silvered water. Ghost accompanied, head low. Jon knelt, submerged bare hands into frigid current. The water raced icy and relentless, same river that once drank Rhaegar's blood. He whispered a vow to Robert, to Lyanna, to every name etched upon his heart. He vowed to be the bridge Robert never could, forging peace not from war's ashes but before the pyre burned. Dawn burned thin gold along horizon as horns summoned march. For 2 weeks the unified host trudged through knee-high drifts along the King's Road, which locals now called the Dead Man's Road. They skirted villages where doors were barred by day and fields lay fallow beneath pale dust. Each hamlet offered tales. Animals drawn from barns, bloodless carcasses left like toys. Blue-eyed shadows glimpsed at tree lines. Men who dismissed such stories before now oiled blades twice nightly. In the Queen's Crown ruins, Jon ordered halt. The Ringfort's ancient stones still held wind at bay. There, he summoned Simeon and other scouts who had once served Tywin's coin. He entrusted them gold-bound scrolls penned by Grand Maester Pycelle and sealed by Lannister and Stark sigils. Open letters decreeing amnesty for small folk who aided rangers, promises of grain stores replenished after the threat. Simeon rode with 10 light horse east and west dispersing promises. Their hoofbeats vanished like hope into pines. That same dusk Jon offered words atop a cracked parapet. "We march not for thrones," he told the gathered, voice echoing in frost-crowned arches, "but for the hearths and families behind us. If we falter, winter's jaws devour all. Stand for the stranger beside you, lion or wolf, flower or kraken, because the enemy cares not for our sigils." Cheers might have rung had not a horn sounded from the south. Runners gasped news. A Lannister foraging party slain. Bodies pale, eyes blue. Whites had crossed the last river. Benjen assembled a skirmish band. Manderly spearmen, reed frogs hopping through mists, Glover archers stringing you. They tracked heavy prints beyond birch stands where black blood stained snow. An hour before midnight they found the dead. 8 sellswords risen, lips riven, bearing rusted swords. Dragonglass arrows silenced 3. Torches finished the rest. But as the last corpse writhed under flame, its mouth split and a voice hissed in jagged Valyrian. "The night falls, the stars bleed, the craven sun hides." The words chilled even hardened Kevin Lannister. Tyrion later muttered that the phrase matched whispers from old Valyrian scrolls speaking of the crimson dusk, omens of the long night. He produced half-burnt parchment from a satchel, brow furrowed. If the dead recite prophecy, we tread deeper than graves. On the 25th day of March, the host reached the last hearth, seat of House Umber, where cavernous halls accommodated feasts fit for giants. Great John Umber met them with booming laughter and barrels of spruce beer potent enough to make even Lannisters weep. Yet the feasting burned melancholy. Tales poured of white shadows stalking the shivering forest. Entire logging camps vanished, leaving only axes embedded in stumps. Winter wolves trotted along the edges of firelight. Ghost barked hoarse warnings. One gray dawn, hunters discovered tracks of a monstrous white bear, paws the size of shields, leading north. John realized every beast, every living thing, fled before advancing death. The march resumed. Snow deepened until wagons mired. Squires hacked pine boughs for corduroy roads. The wind ceased to merely howl. It keened like lost children. One by one campfires struggled to spark, needing oil-soaked torches to catch. When they reached the long causeway of the Bridge of Skulls, a rider approached beneath tattered black cloak. Samwell Tarly, cheeks hollow but eyes fierce behind fogged spectacles. He slid from saddle into John's arms. "Castle Black," he panted. "Hold still, but tunnels beneath the wall crawl with wights. Lord Commander Gior holds the gate with fewer than 300. Tyrion muttered. "Then we are barely in time." 3 days from the wall, Tywin's outriders stumbled upon a curious ruin. A ring of weirwood saplings planted in fresh snow, each carved with the same twisted face, mouth gapy. At center lay a lone ranger's corpse bearing a message scrawled in frozen blood. "Come see the king." Ned studied the grisly script. The Night King mocks invitation. John ordered the corpse burned with pine pitch and weirwood shavings. The flames shot green and crimson sparks that hissed into azure night. That night John dreamed, not of crypts or thrones, but of a plain of glassy ice beneath a roiling sky. Shapes milled. Armies clad in bronze older than age, children of the forest chanting, dragons bound in iron. Atop an alabaster dais stood a tall figure crowned with black ice icicles, eyes twin stars of merciless blue. When the figure raised a hand, walls of the world folded like parchment. John woke, nails biting into palms. He found Jojen by the watchfire. They exchanged silent understanding. Lines converged, dreams screaming truth. At last, the wall loomed. An endless cliff of translucent blue reaching clouds like a frozen god. South of Castle Black, tents of Night's Watch survivors dotted the fields. The gate yawned, charred timbers, hacked flesh, catapults shattered. Yet the black banner still flew. Lord Commander Gior Mormont waited upon the courtyard steps, hair white, raven upon shoulder croaking, "Corn, corn." Men broke formation to kneel, some weeping at relief. John clasped the old bear's arm. "We come late, but swords are drawn." Gior's gaze took in Lannister helms beside Stark spears. "Never thought to see such banners on my doorstep. The wall makes comrades of us all." Tywin arrived behind, cloak streaming, scanning ramparts. A rare glint of awe touched his stern mask. "I mind mountains," he murmured. "This dwarfs them." Benjen guided them through Castle Black's beleaguered armory. Half the forges doused by cold too dire for coal. Dragonglass arrowheads dwindled. Rangers lined infirmaries. Ser Alliser Thorne, arm in sling, grimaced as Lannister men passed, but saluted John. They convened in the King's Tower. Maps sprawling across tables assumed new gravity, for the lines now sketched not petty realms but the yawning void beyond. Left of the map, Samwell placed faded parchment listing wildling clans united under Mance Rayder, numbering tens of thousands now encamped at the Milkwater. Behind them, the walkers with legions of wights. "We stand before a hammer and anvil," Sam said, pushing spectacles up nose. "If Night King drives Raider south while we remain locked behind the wall, the wildlings crash through your lines like floodwater." John spoke. "We must convince Mance Rayder we share enemy." Tywin bristled. "Parley with savages?" Ned countered. "Savages hold the wall tonight. Without them, walkers flank." Gior nodded. Mance marches beneath a banner of red-painted weirwood, a call for peace among clans. He might listen, so it was agreed. A delegation would ride through the gate at dawn. Ned, Jon, Tyrion, and Benjen, escorted by a dozen mixed men carrying torches and chests of bread and obsidian knives as gifts. Before first light, Arya confronted Jon in the yard. Snow stung her cut cheek raw. "Take me," she demanded. He shook his head. "This road must be walked by words, not needles." She scowled but pressed a token into his palm. A wolf carved of ivory. "Bring this back, or do not return." Jon's throat tightened. "I will." They set forth. The tunnel beneath the wall stretched black, haunted by echoes of their own hearts. Past the far flap, they emerged into another world. Snow sculpted into razor dunes, pine trees frozen mid-scream, sky arching purple and silver. Air glittered with tiny crystals that bit lungs. For 2 hours they trudged, lungs aflame, until horn calls carried faint. Wildling sentries perched atop an ice ridge. They led the delegation to a camp sprawling like a city of pelt tents and mammoth-hide yurts, fires smoldering in pits ringed with stone. At the heart, Mance Rayder awaited. Sinewy, dark-haired, cloak patchworked from noble silks and crow blacks. His eyes weighed them with sardonic light. "Lord Stark," he greeted Ned. "And you?" Eyes flicking to Jon. "Ghost of two fathers." He gestured to a seat carved of mammoth rib. "Why risk meeting me beyond your sweet ice wall?" Jon recounted Storm's, Walker's, Robert's death, Tywin's alliance. He laid gifts, bread sweetened with winter honey, obsidian blades. "We ask truce. Fight with us, and when the darkness dies, the wall opens. Land south to the gift share harvest." Mance laughed. "Crow gifts taste of debt." Yet his gaze lingered on obsidian. "You offer what no king below the wall dared, freedom. Let my people farm, craft, marry where seeds can sprout, break chains forged by undulls." Jon nodded. "We stand against a foe that will claim all. Let wolves and free folk share the hunt." Mance's voice quieted. "You speak as one who has walked our snows." Benjen said, "He wore furs beside me in Frostfang passes." Tyrion raised his goblet of goat's milk wine. "Imagine the songs. Dragon Wolf and the king beyond the wall slaying ice demons." Mance chuckled. "I am no king if we share crowns." He extended a weathered hand. "I walk with you to war." Thus struck a pact sealed not by quills but clasped wrists. Wildling horns blew. Ravens burst skyward black against rising pale sun. 6 days of fevered preparation followed. Free folk dismantled yurts, forging sled trains laden with obsidian. Giants rumbled in low speech agreeing to march. Then warriors shaved bronze glyphs into skulls. At Castle Black, Lannister engineers mounted scorpions along the wall's top, each bolt tipped with dragonglass, each winch wrapped in rawhide to resist freeze. On the 7th night, the wind died to utter silence. Jon stood upon the parapet, breath fogged only a finger's width before falling still. Stars blurred behind curtains of moving darkness far to the north. It slithered along horizon like ink in water, cloud, yet not cloud, for it reflected no starlight. Torches guttered in unnatural hush. The horn at Eastwatch blew 3 notes, thrice, "Walkers, walkers, walkers." Jon rang the tower bell until knuckles split. Men flooded parapets, spiking braziers alive with fire oil. Wildlings manned lower ditches. Giants hefted timber clubs. Lannister and Stark archers notched obsidian arrows. From the darkness rose sounds. Ice cracking, bones grinding, a distant choral keen as if glaciers screamed. Then shapes emerged, an army sculpted of night. Whites marched rank upon rank. Dead wildlings, crows, Southron knights from ambushed foraging raids. Eyes blue, moveless. Among them lumbered bears of hoarfrost, wolves without flesh, and spiders big as hounds weaving webs of rime across snow. At their center rode tall figures upon skeletal horses plated in translucent frost mail. Their crowns were antlers of icicles. In their gaunt hands burned swords of glass emitting pale gloom. The foremost lifted his blade. A note like winter's breath on glass rang through marrow. The Night King advanced. Tywin stood beside Jon on the parapet. For once the lion's iron composure cracked. Awe flickered. "7 save us," he whispered. But 7 were silent. Only the living could answer. Jon raised Longclaw, its Valyrian ripples catching Brazier's gold. Loose, arrows streaked night, obsidian tips carving comets. Whites toppled, bodies shattering. Giants hurled boulders to crush ice spiders. Scorpions fired, bolts piercing creatures that burst in flurries of shards. Yet the tide merely rippled, closure inevitable. At Jon's signal, wildling drums thundered counterbeat. Gates in the wall creaked as the unified host surged forth. Umber's roaring battle songs, then screeching, Lannister knights driving lances tipped in dragonglass. At their front galloped Ned on a white destrier, cloak snapping. Beside him rode Mance on reindeer mount, horn high. Chaos consumed the plain. Fire met ice. Steel rang brittle. Torches tumbled from frozen fingers. Arya danced between revenants, needle flashing. Simeon loosed shafts from vantage atop a wagon, each strike precise. Giants wrestled undead mammoths beneath shattering tusks. Jon found himself face to face with a tall walker astride frost mare. Its eyes mirrored emptiness. Its breath exhaled snowflakes. It slashed downward. Jon parried and nearly lost arm from the shock of cold that rippled through steel. Longclaw met ice blade again and again until ghostly heat sapped muscle. Ghost leaped, wrenching the mare's throat. Jon pivoted, swung for the walker's helm. Valyrian steel bit crystal. The creature screamed, fracturing like brittle glass, wind taking fragments. But the Night King remained, gliding, observing. Atop a low ridge he raised both arms. A ripple pulsed through white ranks.
Fallen Korpses jacket upright.
Behind Jon, men he had fought beside rose, eyes blue. Despair struck. Benjen roared for wildfire. Barrels ignited, gouts of green flame slashing darkness. Whites shriveled, but many pressed on, flames clinging to limbs heedless. Sudden a horn call soared, a bellow deeper than giant drums. From western treeline charged shapes with wings. 3 dragons, scales cobalt, emerald, and onyx, riders cloaked in furs. Jon gasped. Above thunder of wings, a voice rang, Daenerys Targaryen's fury given shape. Flames of living fire washed the plain, golden red torrent incinerating whites in swathes, melting snow to rushing water that hissed against ice feet. How she arrived none paused to ask. The tide turned, dragons strafed, giants swung. Combined host pressed until whites faltered. The Night King, cloaked in blacker night, thrust arms skyward and hurled a spear of ice at the onyx dragon, Viserion perhaps. The spear spanned sky faster than thought. A sapphire bolt from Scorpion fired by Tyrion struck it mid-flight, shattering to sleet. The onyx beast roared defiance, bathing ridge in dragonfire. The Night King vanished into swirling steam, retreating north with remnant guard. Dawn crept slow, pink light revealing a battlefield of steaming slush, blackened craters, and shards of crystal corpses. Survivors staggered. Lannister and Stark tended each other's wounds. Wildlings shared thawed ale with Northmen. Giants mourned brothers of stone. Jon trudged to ridge. Only a slick of melting ice remained of where Night King had stood. Ned met him midway, arms streaked with gore, face drawn but alive. They looked upon the smoldering plain. Tywin approached, crimson cloak singed. "Victory?" he rasped. "For today," Jon answered. But tomorrow's snow buries footprints quickly. The onyx dragon landed, talons crunching frost. From its neck climbed a woman garbed in silks beneath fur. Silver hair whipping, her violet eyes met Jon's across broken ground. "I followed the starved ravens," Daenerys said. "Their cries spoke of end of days. I chose to fly toward dawn, not away." Jon bowed, exhaustion bowing deeper than his spine. "You came with fire when all else froze." She dismounted, strode until snow parted. Our houses forged this darkness when last they clashed. Perhaps they must stand together to banish it. Around them banners drooped. Stagwolf, lion, kraken, spear, dragon. Colors bleeding into dawn. Benjen lit fresh torches from residual draconic embers. Their light glinted off obsidian pooled like spilled ink. Jon offered Daenerys the ivory wolf Arya had given him. She turned it over in gloved palm, understanding flickering. Overwhelming fatigue settled, but hope, fragile as frostlace, pulsed anew. Far north, storms yet brewed. The Night King's form would coalesce again. But the living had discovered Union's spark, Dragon's fire, and hearts refusing chill. Jon raised Longclaw, its rippled steel catching newborn sun. Around him voices rose. Wildling gutturals, Northman chants, Southron cheers, melding into a single human roar that shook melting icicles from the wall. High above, ravens wheeled in a wakened sky, black shapes dancing on the breath of a world not ready to die. Beneath that sky, in snowmud and ashes, men knelt beside enemies binding wounds, shared skins of mead, spoke names of comrades lost. The Great War had only begun, but for the first time since Robert's boisterous youth, the Seven Kingdoms, fractured and bleeding, inhaled together and felt the dimmest ember of spring flicker within the howling dark.